Down to an undefeated Missouri Southern team. Start with that. Just what have you seen from Missouri Southern and their good start to the season?
Yeah, I think Coach has done a good job with them. They're much improved over, even what we've watched from last year. We watched a few games of last year and then watched this year just to kind of check personnel and talent. Their talent's upgrading. They're playing fast. They got a true freshman quarterback right now that's playing at a very high level and throwing it all over the yard. So, when you're top 10 in the country in offense, it's not an accident, regardless of who you're playing. So we'll have our hands full, but like always, it's going to really depend on how we play. I think if, we play well, I think we can play with any team in the country, and if you don't play well, you're rolling the dice. So we're just going to try and control what we can control and get to the fourth quarter and have a chance to win. But they're not, the Missouri Southern that, you may have known, or I knew 5-6 years ago. It's a different club for sure.
Clayton, same thing offensively for them. Week one, they ran the ball a whole ton with a lot of guys you played against before, and then last, or 2 weeks ago, whenever, it was a lot of throwing with the Martin kid. Just what have you seen from them offensively, and what's going to be the key to having success defensively against them?
I think for them, their biggest thing is they're pretty versatile in what they do. One game they came out and ran the ball for a lot of yards. The next week they came out and threw the ball for a lot of yards. So I think just, from the film we've watched so far, I think just having a pretty good plan across the board. We want to get to some of those run-heavy formations, and how we want to play some of that in terms of how we fit things. And in the passing game, knowing, when we want to take chances, when we want to be smart and do certain things. But I think they, bring a lot to the table that we got to prepare for. So, we're going to have our hands full for sure.
Coach, we talked about it after the game, but finding that balance in the run game, big games from Dom and Quincy. So what have you seen kind of in the continued development from Mankato through this week with how the run game's going?
Yeah, I think Coach Prosser, and Coach Hoover, our tight ends coach, those are the same guy. Our O-line's doing a really good job. We've had different backs that have played, due to injury, and they're all having success. And that doesn't come without being really good up front. So I think it's a mentality a lot. I think, if you put emphasis on something, you're bound to improve in that area. And, we've said from the very get-go, with the D linemen, like Clayton, they're going to win and lose games for us. And same thing with the O-line. And kind of treat them that way. And so when we take the big boys, when we go on a road trip, the big boy, they eat first. And that's kind of our nod to them that, I know they don't get any newspaper clippings, but that's, if the Northwest football is a vehicle, what's under the hoods is the O-line and D-line, is that engine. And, we need a powerful group there. And so that's probably been the most important part, is those guys just caring, playing hard. They're not perfect, but if they can be right 80% of the time playing their butts off, then, we've got to recruit and have some backs that can find some holes, and they have. And we hope that continues. But they've embraced it, the challenge, and hopefully we keep going, because it's to play football, our goal is to play as long as you can in the year. And later in the year against great teams, you got to be able to run the ball and stop the run, and be physical. And for us to get to that point, this is where we got to start. And I think we're off to a good start. We got a long ways to go, but it's definitely improving.
Clayton, talk about that Southern offensive line. What's it going to take from a defensive line perspective, an experienced defensive line perspective? I don't want to look back toward previous years a whole awful lot, but going into this year, we talk about how good Southern can be and how capable they are. Talk about what you're going to have to do up front to get it done.
Yeah, in years past, Southern, their record may not have been as good, but their O-lines have always been pretty solid. And this year they don't have as many guys back, but from the two games I've seen, they've been physical and they've been big when they want to run the ball. And they've also been pretty sound in some of their pass protections. So, like I said earlier, we just kind of got to be prepared for what we're going to see. And know that it's going to be a physical game, and we just got to try to get after them as much as we can up front. And if we do that, I think we're going to like our chances.
Challenge dealt to the D-line early in the year with Nile going down, but what have you seen from the younger guys stepping in and filling that role, and obviously looking forward to getting him back, but what have you seen from kind of your fellow D-linemen stepping up when the number's called?
I've just been really proud of those guys. Like we were saying over there, we didn't know some of those guys. We didn't expect them to play as much in the summer as they are now. And so just seeing, that buy-in go up even more and more each week is just pretty encouraging. And I think those guys are, pretty receptive of what we're trying to say to help them with some of the little things, every week. But seeing guys like Zion, who, made his first start 2 weeks ago, and he's been playing pretty well. and guys like Pegram, Parker Bowen, Lorenzo Brinkley, Jacob Stockard, guys that, I guess Stock started week 1, but, there's been guys all over the place that haven't played a ton. And, those guys are all raising their, expectations every week of what they're putting out there. So I'm just really proud of those guys and just want to see them keep getting better as we go along.
Coach, I know you're focused on the Bearcats, but looking at the entire league, the MIAA, there's only one undefeated team left right now through 3 weeks or 2 weeks. That's pretty amazing that only one MIAA team has a 0 next to their loss column.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's shocking. It just means there's good football. I think the MIAA has done a good job of going out and taking some games that are challenging. There's some big name opponents that we're playing week 1, but everybody wants to find out where you are. But makes it a little helter-skelter. It's a world I like to live in, man, where anything can happen, and you roll the dice a little bit. So I think everything's on the table and will be for a while. But I just think the league will figure itself out here in a few more weeks. Kind of where everybody's at as we start playing each other. But we went outside of conference for some games early, and we lost to some teams that weren't in this conference. So just means week 1 we weren't as good as them. Doesn't mean week 10, week 11 the MIAA isn't as good as those teams. It's just shows what ground we have to cover and expose some things for us. And then now it's a race to see, who corrects those items or gets things fixed, the best.
Both Chris and Z played about as well as they can on Saturday. Just what have you seen with that and them getting more comfortable in the situation where they do rotate the way they have been?
They've embraced it. They've done a really good job with it. I think they both enjoyed. I think everybody obviously likes to have every snap, every play, but this is gives us the best chance to win right now and move forward. It gives, sometimes a step back. Sometimes you lose sight of the forest through the trees, when you're in there, and you kind of step back sometimes and, watch what the other guy's doing or see what it is, and it slows the game down. What I'm encouraged by, and I hope it happens, I'm never encouraged by mistakes. We've made our fair share of them. But both of them made mistakes in that game and then, rebounded, and actually played really well. And I think that's half the battle. That's the bounce back. You're going to have an interception here. You're going to have a bad read or bad decision. It's like, just, okay, let's not, compound those or have multiple ones. And I thought, Chris really did a good job. Chris needed to do that. We needed him to do that and step up. And he's played a lot of football. He's got a lot of football under his belt. And like I said, after the game, the kid believes so hard in what you're selling and the game plan and the plays that you're running that they all should work. And just sometimes you got to send the white flag up and say, okay, you got us on this play and we'll move to the next one, or a punt's not a bad thing, or a field goal. It's, we've had, like, offensively, we've scored in the red zone every time this year except for 3 times, and 2 of them were 2 interceptions and then we took a knee. So we'd like to think we can at least get points when we're in there. We want to score for touchdowns, but if we take care of the ball, I think we got a chance to be pretty good because we can balance things out running and passing. So hopefully they keep improving, and I think they will. They're getting smarter as they go, and that's Z's. He's just a puppy, but he's a very athletic puppy, and wants to do well. But there's times where he just, drifts off the road a little bit. You got to tighten the chain, or just pull him back in, not tighten the chain, pull him back in, and he wants to learn, and he's there. So he's going to have a few of those every now and then. You got to take the good and the bad, and that's a saying. What'll make you laugh, makes you cry sometimes. And so you laugh at sometimes at what he does and how he gets out of something and does it, and then you have one where he spin around and we try and throw it out of bounds and we get a intentional grounding and we lose yards, and so it's like, all right, well, let's minimize those things. We're not going to get out of every scenario. Sometimes they're going to get you and go from there. So they've all embraced it. I've been really pleased with how they've done.
The tight end position, I know you were dealt injuries before the year, but Andrew coming through, big catch, obviously was pretty wide open on that big catch. But just what have you seen from that position as they continue to grow after having basically no experience coming into the year?
Yeah, they've had to, and they've done a good job. Braden Thompson, our starter, really a week before the game, has had to have back surgery, and so it's the next guy up, and so they all have talent. They're all, can play. I don't think sometimes you're ready for that on your plate, when you've been a backup where you're not there. And then so we play a lot of guys, and they've jumped in. And Andrew coming back's helped. He's a more traditional hand in the dirt guy. as far as being an inline blocker. But they all have their things that we scheme for, and it's fun to have those guys that you can do different things for. And so Walkie scored on Wizard. We gave him a W name for that play for him, and he executed well. It's good to see him doing. They're a smart group, so they make mistakes early in the week with game plans, and then by the end of the week they have it figured out because they're pretty smart. So it's been fun to see them have some success, and we need tight ends are arguably the most important position in this offense. We've got to have good tight ends, so to have a bunch of them playing well helps.
Coach, we got to see some crowd surfing photos yesterday morning. Question: have you ever crowd surfed before? And is that you look pretty good doing it. Is that a regular thing for you?
I wasn't aware we had cameras in there, but yeah, I've never crowd surfed before. No, but it's fun. It's just something we did with the guys, and you work too dang hard during the week. Not to celebrate. Wins are hard. No matter who you are, and so it's something. It's just a little chant we have fun with, and then just. And it went from there. So I saw it online, and my wife asked. She's like, I hadn't mentioned it to Andrea yet. She's like, "What are you doing in there?" It just happened, and we went with it. So here we go. So I've seen other coaches do it. So what the heck? But yeah, it's just to have fun with the guy. We don't. I don't take myself too serious. When you work really hard, you got to play hard too. And enjoy them. And so we definitely work hard, but it's some levity with it and have fun. And I think. There's a part where if you're a Bearcat, you understand you're a Bearcat, and we want to be where we're at.
He is 2 for 2. They haven't dropped him yet either. So.
That's good. That's an important part of it. That's the big. Make sure the guys up front are scan who's there.
The big guys eat first.
That's right. You gotta. Yes. That's smart.